weird.
Because Grandpa died.
So well, I mean, Grandma and Grandpa were living together. They were living alone for years and years and years. And now Audrey came home and is living in their basement.
Grandma died when I think I was still in...
So that's think about that. And Grandpa was sick at that point. He was on oxygen.
I'm trying. I can't keep that straight.
You know how they had
when Grandpa died.
Meetings and everything when Grandpa
You want me to look? Yeah. So, but do you think she was living there when he died?
Our house, and it was weird for me because
I don't know.
I'm trying to think too. Like, how long was?
I can't remember.
But he was sick for a long time. But
that was like the only time I had ever seen him.
I think they were. I think she wasn't there then.
When he died, so I don't think she was either.
And sitting.
It's like she came and left.
Parents sitting and looking.
Yeah, she was gone, but then she must have come back after he died.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't know. I can't keep that straight.
And then Grandma, and then at some point after he died, I don't know how long after. Do you know how long after he died that she had her stroke? Grandma did.
She had a stroke after she moved to. Grandma had a stroke after she moved to.
So and we looked at the fridge and there was some
Royal Oak.
Yeah.
Black Label in there,
So, and how long was that after he died?
Gave it to him and
no way.
I don't know.
Yep. And he.
I can't remember anymore.
Yeah, that was a lot of drama.
Yeah.
Later.
So before that is when Dad's like, that's when you talked to Audrey and you're like, and you took her to Ramshorn, and you said you got to go. So it was before Grandpa died, before Grandma had her stroke.
No. Grandma had the stroke in Royal Oak.
And then Audrey came back.
No, not that. Listen though.
Is that? I don't know. I don't remember now.
I wonder when you talked to Audrey.
I'm going.
Wonder when you sent Audrey back and said you got to go.
But I didn't give him alcohol. I gave him beer.
Well, do you remember when I ended up in the hospital?
That's what was going through my brain.
Well, you were in the hospital a few times.
At that point in my life.
But this must have been the first time?
At that point in our life,
Yeah.
What was a whiskey?
This put you in the hospital?
Drink.
Audrey and Grandma's stress?
You
That was the thing that put you in the hospital the first time?
I think
that's
so.
When I learned that beer.
What year was that?
Was alcohol.
Because I don't remember a lot of that either, because that's kind of, I had my own things going on.
Yeah.
All I was like,
I did not know. All
remember
that
I
beer
start.
was to me
Yeah.
Was an
so
adult drink.
Grandma had a stroke.
That was just a little step above.
Audrey was here, you think?
Audrey was here. And she called me.
Where was she living?
They had lunch together.
Grandma and Audrey?
Yeah. And Audrey was
alcohol
cleaning up the kitchen or something, not doing something. And about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, she called me. And she said, Mom isn't speaking to me. And I don't know what's wrong. And
scotch and water.
You have to come over and see what's going on.
Yeah.
She was having her stroke?
That's when she had the stroke.
But Audrey didn't recognize it, and so she called you instead of calling 911?
I mean, all the way.
Yes. So I went up there.
Did you know I did that?
And Mom was sitting in the chair.
Every holiday.
And
this is how it goes, okay?
She couldn't talk.
And hand it to me.
So did you recognize right away she had a stroke, or you knew something was wrong?
So I called. So I told Audrey to call. No, I think I ended up calling.
So Audrey was there with her for probably at least 20 minutes, probably more than an hour.
Oh, 3 hours.
Freaking great, man.
She missed the window.
Bob, to this day,
The damage was done. I mean, if she called 911 right away, the damage probably would have been minimized.
Could have been.
From the stroke, yeah. So anyway, so she sat there with her for 3 hours.
By that time,
well, she didn't sit. She was
putzing around while Grandma was sitting on the couch
and talking away to her, and Grandma wouldn't answer. And she says, I think Mom's mad at me and she won't talk to me.
And you got there and you're like, she's sick.
So I came up and I knew right away. So I called for the ambulance. Well, first of all, they couldn't find it. They couldn't find it right away.
They couldn't find the apartment?
Yeah, and I had to go out and try to find wherever it was that they were.
And that's pretty stressful. I know.
Yeah,
I've
so
seen-
I'll
yeah.
never forget seeing Mark sitting
so
on
they
that
took
and
then they took her to the
Grandpa's
hospital.
dining room
and,
and going, oh no,
Wait,
that
wait,
guy's not marrying my
wait,
aunt.
I don't know what Audrey was doing.
You know, yeah, you were kind of
Grandma,
distracted,
Yeah.
dealing with that.
Yeah.
Uncle Mark?
And
That young?
so she was in the hospital for about
Oh, come on, you know,
A
you
week.
remember all of it, Amy.
maybe
Nancy's
longer.
husbands.
But at that point, she probably
But I
couldn't take care of
remember
herself.
And then
sitting there and me
then
going,
they
"She's not marrying that
transitioned
guy."
her to a nursing home.
Okay.
Yeah, Grandpa's still alive.
And that's when we
Yeah, Mark knew Grandpa.
Oh, that's so long ago.
And it's funny for me that I thought that way then. And
No,
how much
but
I
before
love
that
Mark.
we were trying to find
Yeah.
somebody and
And
then
how much
Audrey came.
And how much I
So
enjoyed him.
anyway,
And what good friends we were. I mean, I was
so
really
then
good
when she
friends
came
with her.
home,
I just can't believe it.
From the hospital after the nursing
But
home.
finish your story.
Yeah.
I'm
Home to
sorry
her apartment?
I don't even. I
Yeah,
don't even
she-
know. Well, now I
because
just got
she
distracted
kept
by
saying to me, she says, "Mary,
Mark being
'cause
actually
I was-
there and Grandpa was there.
Yeah.
why was I
And
bringing?
Max, their dog, was on.
I was bringing
Grandpa started getting sick.
people
sick,
over.
and
Oh,
Dad
Audrey had gone
got
over to
Max.
Clarence's or I guess or something.
so
I don't know
I
where
was
she went.
13.
Well, didn't he live in Florida at that point?
Or I think it was
Mm,
14
well,
when he died.
Yeah.
He had an
Because he was my
He
apartment.
had an apartment there
He
too.
was sick
Yeah.
for a lot longer than that, though.
Well, yeah,
So
but
I
he
don't know
was
where
my
she
confirmation
was
mentor,
at
because,
during this
you know, when you're 13,
period,
you
and I
get
was.
confirmed, and he was
Did you
very
see
sick.
that in the picture?
You
I-
you
I-
had your hands full. You had
No, I don't- I
Mom
don't-
is sick.
Go for the CD that I gave you.
Audrey's
Yeah,
here.
I'll have to see
Go for the
that.
CD.
I've got
There's
4
pictures
kids.
of you and Grandpa.
And you might have been
in
working at
Lost
the
Life.
time, right?
They're
Yeah,
not the
I
best
was.
pictures.
And you had Dad,
Well, of
who was
course.
had an
It's actually
opinion
good
about all
when
this,
you
I'm
see
sure.
Grandpa was
Oh
sick.
yes,
Yeah,
he told me.
very sick,
Well,
very sick.
we had him
And I
come. I had him
remember
come
that,
over to
when he
get
was
the
sick.
washer and dryer hooked up.
At
And-
Grandma's house
Yeah.
apartment.
I wanted to
Yeah,
see Grandpa, but he
and,
didn't want me to go.
Really? I don't-
And
Audrey
I kind of remember that.
asked him if he could help
Yeah.
put the curtain rod up for the drapery because she was having trouble.
So she was there too.
Yeah, and
I had to go
he said,
in my uniform.
he said, "I'm not doing any more of this," and he left.
Boy. Because he
The
was
last time
stressed
I
too.
saw Grandpa.
Yeah, that was
Well,
after.
you were
that was
stressed.
after.
Yeah, you both were stressed. It was too much.
Yeah, and then he told me that he says, "You know what's going to happen is you're going to end up
And that was the last time I
taking care of both of those women,
And
and I'm not
Audrey
doing
would have
it."
let you do that. He was right.
And
Do you agree with him, or are you like, did he do the right thing? You think by saying that, or were you just like so confused at the time you don't even know?
Well, knowing your father,
And I remember.
That hospital, the St.
Yeah.
John's Hospital?
he wouldn't do anything with his mother either. So
So yeah, there's that.
yeah,
It sounds though
At one time, and
he was kind of right.
it was.
It was too much for you, and he knew it was too much for you. It was certainly too much for him.
and he wasn't going to do anything.
And it was too much for him. He knew it was too much for you, and you couldn't do it all on your own, in addition to everything else. So
Because
he
I would
kind-
go
yeah.
out. I would go out
There.
to
I
work
did. I went, but
like at 10 o'clock at night,
because
And-
Grandpa died there.
and I had to go around to different
see
places
Dad in
to
that
check
same
on people
hospital
and that
Grandpa
kind of
died
thing.
in.
For your job?
Yeah, and I would go by her apartment and just make sure that everything was okay. And
So you check in on her
He was
during
at
your
such-
own rounds.
yeah.
So yeah, it was even affecting your job.
Yeah.
Alright.
No, well, no, because
You were
I,
able to do it.
I had to.
You had to be there anyways.
I
Yeah,
am not
yeah.
going to see Dad.
So,
at St. John's. I'm not going in that hospital
anyway,
to see my dad.
after I told her
Whether
that,
Dad is.
and I
Told
was,
who what?
at that-
Audrey,
yeah,
that she needed to go.
One of his
Yeah.
many.
So you-
visits.
so you
but I
took her
didn't
to-
know what I was going to do with Grandma
But it was
because
just
Grandma
something
couldn't
at that
really
point,
be
I'm
there
like, I
alone.
can't do this. I can
And
only-
I'd already
all I-
tried
I walked
to
into
get
that-
somebody
I went there a couple
In
times.
the inside, like a nurse or something.
Yeah, like
In that
a
And
at least somebody that was there during
of the time I was
part of the day.
So you had Audrey there,
walking
but she
in and
wasn't
seeing
capable.
Dad laying in his
You
bed
kind of had to take care of Audrey
and
too.
seeing
Yeah,
And you
Dad
knew
was right.
Dad told you Audrey was just going to get worse.
Grandpa was laying in a
And
bed,
then it was just gonna go from-
behind him.
Grandma was going to die. You
And
knew that she would eventually
Dad was
pass.
like,
And then you'd have to take care of
it was almost
Audrey.
the same freaking.
But you also kind of needed Audrey.
And I just was like.
In your mind, because you didn't have Dad to help you.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do it all by yourself.
And I had asked, I had sat down.
You were in a position.
I had asked
I looked at Laura and go,
Heather and Kurt. Well, we had like at dinner time, one time I says,
really
I said,
bright. Do you remember it being really
could
bright?
you
Yeah.
take one day a week after school and go and stay with your grandma? That would help me out a lot. And just visit with her for a couple hours and everything.
But they were little, weren't they? I mean, they were like middle school?
They were in high school.
Oh, they were in high school then?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's totally different.
Neither one of them would do it.
I can't see my girl. Well, Claire might, but yeah, that's a lot to ask. Yeah.
One day a week.
One day a week.
After school.
After school.
Yeah.
They would, yeah. And so
just to go check on her and talk to her a little bit for a couple hours.
Just a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, they couldn't. Yeah, so you were basically on your own.
And your father said absolutely not.
So he didn't make him either, and he wouldn't do it.
It was never.
Yeah, you were in a position. That's shitty.
So
and she didn't know anyone here. I mean, this wasn't even her home, really.
Yeah. So I was going to the doctor for a checkup for something, Dr. Schiffer.
When Mom was in the hospital.
And on the way home,
it was the same thing. It's like this just is what happened. There's nothing we can do.
I could go home.
All of it.
This was your first breakdown. This was the first time?
No.
You had one before?
When I called.
I don't.
You're not sure?
I don't remember. But anyway, on the way home.
You remember this one?
Yeah, I ended up at Mrs. Itoni's house.
Yeah, because you had been there. Just
okay, I don't even know who that is.
And then she called.
Sweet. He had just.
And I guess I was just rambling on and on and on.
I can see that. Yep.
And he was.
And then Mrs.
She's probably like.
Dad was gone.
Yeah.
Then Mrs. What's her name?
And, you know, and that's so
Collenberg?
much that James said.
No. Kaczynski?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
Laura. And
She finally called Mrs. Kaczynski, and Mrs. Kaczynski came home.
When that happened.
After Mrs. Kaczynski was out, and she came over,
I just would not have.
and they took me to the hospital.
They recognized you needed some help.
Yeah.
And
I think this was before your father came home. Anyway,
you know, we're looking. It was perfect.
and they were supposed to call him, and they never did.
Really?
And you guys didn't know where I was.
Wonder why they didn't.
They did.
So, like, you just never came home.
I didn't come home, and your father didn't know where I was.
Yeah.
Nobody else knew where you were?
No, you guys didn't know where I was. Nothing.
Grandpa.
And they didn't.
And
I wonder why they
so
didn't.
the next
And all of
day,
them there,
For a day?
and
the
Dad
next
was
day,
there, and
yeah,
Grandpa
I
was
stayed there overnight.
Nobody at the hospital even called home?
And
Nobody
I had
told
watched
anybody where
Dad
you were?
like
Mm-mm.
What did Dad must have been freaking the fuck out.
I don't know.
But then we were looking at.
I don't know.
And
I think he was fed up at that point. I don't know. Anyway,
Oh my God.
me
And Grandma,
Dad
and nobody was checking on Grandma either
telling Jake, look at
during
Right.
this time. Because you were in the hospital. Dad wasn't going to check on her.
No, Grandma called the
Upper
house.
Bend, right?
She was looking for you, too.
Yeah, looking for me.
So she was also looking for you. Okay.
And she called the house because I had showed her how to use the phone and how to call.
Okay.
And
and look.
I guess your dad told her he didn't know where I was either.
Do
I don't know what they did.
you remember what was happening to you during this time?
I was in the hospital room by this time.
And were you, how did you, like, what was happening to you? Like, so they admitted you?
I don't know.
Do you remember if it was scary or anything? Like, what was happening to you at the hospital?
No, I don't really remember.
You don't remember any of that?
Yeah. And
You
then-
just remember all the other things that were happening, but you weren't even there.
Yeah. And so then
The ladder.
the next morning
No, it was beautiful.
oh, and that's when Dr. Andrakovich came in and he said, this was the first time I was in the hospital.
This was the very first
now
time
that I think about it, yeah.
Yeah.
This is
okay.
the first time.
This is when you first met Dr. Andrakovich.
Yes, and he said, I guess I talked really reasonable to him, but I just said I can't go home.
Interesting. So you knew at that time that you were overwhelmed.
Yeah, I said I can't go home. And he said, well, you're going to have to. You know? He says,
buck up, big girl.
There's nothing wrong. You're not well enough to be.
You're not sick enough to be in the hospital.
Yeah.
And you got to go somewhere, honey.
And when he left, I picked up, there was a cup there, I picked it up and I threw it.
You're like, no, I'm not going home. Do you think you did that because you couldn't go home? You knew you couldn't?
I was just furious. I just remember being furious.
You're like, I need help here.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to help me.
Yeah. And somewhere in there, I tried to have them call home so that I could have some clothes, you know.
So now a day is. Has anyone called the police?
Nothing.
What's happening at home?
I don't know. So.
And they still never told Dad?
Nobody told him. No, but nobody told him.
You know, at some point he might have called them because he knows who your friends are. So he might have known.
Yeah.
But I remember we were together.
And he was probably just pissed because he was like, what the fuck? What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
He was probably going through his
supper. The kids all home.
And I might be wrong, but I'm assuming at some point he called your friends and like, she hasn't come home in a day. Does anyone know where she is?
I don't know.
Or the cops.
I think they called him.
Who did? The friends finally did?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it was only like a day because at some point he showed up with some to get you or see you.
You know what?
Yeah, I think so. Somebody had to bring me clothes.
But by that point, you had your tantrum, so they kept you.
Yeah,
because they were about to release you, and you're like, no, I'm not ready to go.
When Dr. Artovich walked out,
he was going to surgery.
And I thought, I don't know what I thought, but I picked up that coffee cup and I tried to hit the damn television.
You tried to break the television? That would make an impact. She broke the TV. She needs to be committed. 9th floor. On your way, young lady.
And so,
he built that
anyway.
Freaking health system like
yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first time. Interesting. Yeah. So a lot of stuff happened. Yeah. So that was, and I wonder if that was during the holidays too, because a lot of times, so you were only hospitalized a few times, but it was often.
I think I was in 4 or 5 different times.
Yeah.
Because I was in, then Mom finally
under sedation.
Was gone, and I started school and all that. And
okay, so you started school after all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were on. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in nursing school.
So she passed away soon after that.
Yeah.
Well, no. So that probably is why Clarence came. And you were out of the hospital, and he came. By the time he came to take Grandma away, you were released.
I was what?
Released from the hospital, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you were home, he came, he took her away. And then she passed away as soon as she got to Florida.
Yeah.
Look at your grandkids.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I mean, she
used to drive me crazy.
So were you still, so when you got out of the hospital, did you take care of her some more? Who was taking care of her? While you were in the hospital?
Probably, I don't know who called Clarence and Evelyn, but they came and
around that time. So while you were in the hospital, that's when they came to get her. Okay. Yeah. That's a lot on her too.
I think I remember them asking your dad if she could come
to our house.
Yeah.
No, and that obvious. I mean, we couldn't do that. We had no room for all of us. We all 4 of us were home.
Yeah.
So he probably put his foot down. Because
I don't know what happened from that point on.
Because they certainly wouldn't help with finances, I'm sure, because that was all Clarence's money. Because I mean, that would have been a big burden on everyone in the whole family. But it might have helped you.
Well, we had her finances. She knew. She had $15,000 that we put in a money account. And that's what she was writing checks for. She had checks.
Paying for her apartment and...
Yeah.
So she could take care of herself. She had some...
And she was making real big interest on that at that time.
So she was fine.
David and John.
Yeah, she could do all that kind of stuff.
Excellent, okay.
And it's just that...
my kids are so much better.
What would happen when I would go over and have tea or make sure that she was eating and that kind of thing. And she would start talking to me, and she would.
And look at Tommy.
All of a sudden,
he's so handsome.
40 years.
There's no other kids.
And then I'd say, "Oh, you were saying, Mom." You were
so
saying.
She jumped 40 years past.
Yeah, she would start talking, and then all of a sudden she would jump, and so then I would just say, "Oh, well, you were saying what? What were you saying, Mom?"
You brought her back.
Yeah, I would bring her back.
But, and that's because of the stroke, you think?
Yeah, but I don't think anybody else would have the patience to do that with her. I don't know. Anyway, it was a mess.
Yeah, it sounded like a mess. It sounds like it was hard.
I don't know what I went to the doctor for, but on the way home I kept saying, I can't go home. I really can't go home.
That was the day of the breakdown? Yeah.
That was the first time.
Yeah. It was a lot. You were overwhelmed.
And I wasn't getting any help anyplace.
No. And it's so interesting because Grandma had how many children?
Well,
how many were alive at that point?
Well, Marie, Audrey.
Like sometimes Ron tries to be sweet about things, and I'm like,
Clarence.
Yeah, but you're never gonna be.
And you?
And all that. Clarence was. He was just. I don't know. He was just interested in the money.
Was he still an alcoholic at that point?
Oh, he was.
He was still drinking?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
So he was worth not a lot.
Anyway.
It wasn't even a lot of money. It's not even a lot of money. Wasn't even a lot of money.
No, there wasn't that much money.
No.
Back when he was
I took her, and this made him furious because I took her.
Yeah.
She said.
Dad knew him then.
Yeah.
And Dad knew
She remembered that she had money in certain banks.
Okay.
And but she didn't remember where certain monies were. And so I said, and she was scared to death that Clarence was going to
take her money.
I know.
Yeah.
Bob was one of them. There was like 5 parties that they just.
And so
she didn't trust him.
So I took her up to Lansing. This was after she had the stroke and everything.
Try and find her money.
And I took her to the bank, the bank that she said to go to. And we did go right past Clarence's place. And that made him furious.
Oh my gosh.
They always had that at their house. And I remember seeing that there.
So anyway, they wouldn't let me come in the room with her.
Okay,
at the
that's
bank.
interesting.
So I don't know if she got everything across or not. She seemed to think that things were straightened out anyway.
Yeah, or.
Okay, that's so interesting. Yeah. So you don't really know exactly what happened in there. You don't know what her assets were.
No, they would not allow me in the room with her.
And she wasn't able to communicate
I tried to explain to him that she had had a stroke and that she had a little bit of trouble
communicating and stuff.
Yeah. Concentrating. and that she was concerned about her accounts.
I remember when those bikes would be there.
Well, I can see them not because they don't know if you're there to steal her money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was such a nerd, not a nerd.
I sat outside and
so something happened there.
Yeah.